I know that religion is deeply personal. At the end of the day, not two people practice religion the same way. But you cannot tell me that someone who uses faith as a way to protect their own political agenda, like homophobia or misogyny, should be the head of state of a religion that practices faith, unity, peace, and acceptance over anything else. Welcome back, my gorgeous viewers and readers. I hope you had an amazing weekend filled with warm books and a shady spot by the beach or by the pool, whatever you guys prefer. I definitely had a great weekend because I spent it with my family in Portugal. And one of the things that I did was reading Conclave by the recommendation of my dad. And obviously, because I trust him, I decided to give it an opportunity. And honestly, this book might be the best representation of Catholicism and everything that is wrong with the church that I have ever seen. And I have read a lot of books regarding religion, but this definitely has to be the best that I've seen so far. And let's talk about it. As always, let's start with the summary first. The story follows Cardinal Lomeli, who is the Dean of the College of Cardinals, being urgently summoned to the Casa Santa Marta in the Vatican, which is the Pope's private residence. And there he learns that the Pope has passed away of natural causes of a heart attack. And in the wake of the Pope's funeral, or the former Pope funeral, he finds out that he is the one that has to manage one of the most secretive and private meetings that the church has overall, and which is the Papal Conclave, where the next Pope will be elected. A few weeks later, the day before the Papal Conclave is starting, all the cardinals that could be elected, all 118 cardinals, come into Casa Santa Marta to stay with all the other cardinals during the Papal Conclave, and therefore start the conclave and the meeting all together. And obviously, during those few hours of the dinner, Lomeli already starts seeing some drama between the cardinals, obviously because of difference of opinions or difference of the practices of religion or the religion whatsoever. He sees that some cardinals have very strong political ambitions, for example, or they have personal rivalries. Some cardinals don't get along with each other, and also the overall ideology that they have of religion, and therefore the Catholic Church, come into play into the Papal Conclave, which he already thinks that there's going to be is going to be intense, taking into account how important the Pope was, or the former Pope was, for everyone around him. Quite quickly, he also finds out that there are 4 favorite cardinals to be elected Pope, not only by the cardinals themselves, but also by the news and by the media. And these 4 cardinals are Cardinal Tremblay, at least that's how I pronounce it, who is Canadian man who seems to be very media savvy and also vaguely liberal. We also have Cardinal Bellini, who is a true Italian cardinal and is looked as the ideal candidate to succeed the former Pope, and also very liberal as well. And then we have Cardinal Adeyemi and Cardinal Tedesco, who are the 2 favorite cardinals to be elected Pope from the conservative side of the church. But the real twist arrives when an unexpected cardinal arrives to Casa Santa Marta. So these unknown man called Vincent Benitez, a Filipino cardinal, arrives to Casa Santa Marta and shows that he was elected by the former Pope as a cardinal in pectore, which means it means that the identity was kept secret by the late Pope. No one else knew that he was elected cardinal, but because he's a cardinal, he has to be included in the voting decision of the new Pope. And his sudden arrival throws the equilibrium away from this Papal Conclave that was meant to be quite easy and quite quick, right? Because it shows, or the way Cardinal Benitez behaves shows that there are way more secrets inside this conclave than Lomeli actually first expected. now, getting into the discussion, I have already mentioned that this book is a perfect representation of what I think is wrong with Catholicism, or at least with the church in general. And this is something that I have always been very critical of not only the religion that I saw and that I had growing up, but also with everything that I've seen inside the church, right? As someone who has been quite close with the community, I can tell you for a fact that this is like everyday things, or like everyday stuff that I saw whilst I was in the church and that I did not agree with. And these are some of the reasons why I decided to leave Catholicism and not practice Christianity anymore, because they are so prevalent in not only in the everyday of the religion, but also in the way people preach, that it just makes my skin crawl. I'm not gonna lie. Conclave is the perfect representation of how personal politics and desires corrupt even the holiest of men, right? Because all the characters that we see here are men of God, right? Not only they are cardinals, they are at the highest of the hierarchy in the church. All of them could be the next pope, but also at the same time, they are the ones that should preach with the example, or that have preached with the example. That's why they have received these titles, right? But we see that all the characters, right, or even the characters that we like, are subject to their own faults and their own flaws, right? And they are even all of them are corrupted to get this position as the Pope. One of the best examples that I see in the book is Cardinal Adeyemi, right? He was one of the favorites, or the fan favorites, not only outside in the media or like in the general population, but also within the conclave, right? He was meant to be the first African pope, which is such a huge honor, and it's so needed, right? And we also know how intensely religious many African communities are. There are so many communities in Africa that we see that are that preach, or that create communities based on religion, based on Catholicism, for example, more specifically. And it really grind my gears when I was reading the book and I found out that Adeyemi had a son with one of the nuns in Casa Santa Marta, right? We all find out that this was planned by another cardinal, but the fact that he had a son himself, and also that he was a child of rape, or at least that's what Lomeli says, it's just so upsetting. It was so upsetting to me, even though I have expected it. I expected someone to have a son, because that's like the reality of men in general, but also it was especially upsetting for me that Cardinal Adeyemi had a son, even though he's meant to be celibate, because he was the one that was preaching for everyone in the church to be celibate, right? It's so hypocritical, or it was so hypocritical, the fact that he was preaching all these things to later find out that actually that's not, it was not something that even himself did, right? Another example that I saw of the corruption of the human flesh to get this position of power and control over the church in general is Cardinal Tedesco, right? I didn't like him from the start, from the get-go, because he was too conservative for me. Even Adeyemi was too conservative, right? But Tedesco was very, very extremely and openly conservative. But when we start seeing his behavior and see how intensely he wants this position, I realized very early on that it wasn't because he wanted to bring the church to what he thought was originally the preachings of Catholicism, but because he had an ulterior motive, which was a religious war between Islam and Catholicism or Christianity, which is something that happens way too often, right? I have experience with certain priests, or with people within Catholicism, or people that are very strongly Catholics, right? That the first thing that they say is that they are so openly racist, or openly disgusted by other religions, when the first thing that I think is you are asking for respect, like for people to respect your religion, but then you are the first one who attacks other religions, right? It's like, I have the right to do whatever I want, or to preach to whoever I want, but you don't. Like, you should either be an atheist, or you should be part of my religion and my congregation, which is something that I see in Tedesco, right? It's like, that's the best example. And this is the thing. I would say both Cardinal Adeyemi and Cardinal Tedesco are two pieces of the same coin, or like two faces of the same coin, because they just preach, or they are very proud of preaching all these things that they think, or they believe, they very strongly believe into it, and they believe that is the religious truth. But at the end of the day, they are hypocritical enough, or they are too hypocritical to understand that this is something that, like, they are affected by as well. Another thing that I also found really interesting about the book, about Conclave, was the fact that everyone within the papal conclave was actually committing sin, right? Because we see, for example, Cardinal Tedesco and Cardinal Adeyemi are sinning of pride, right? Or sinning of thinking that they know the best, or they know better than God, and they should be the ones that are chosen. But also, cardinals that I enjoyed, or characters that I really liked, were also committing sin on a day-to-day basis, right? For example, Lomeli, he was committing sin by thinking that he was not enough, or like that if God picked him as the Pope, or as the next Pope, he wouldn't be enough, mentioning or like showing that he didn't believe in God's word. Or also, when he starts believing in himself and he sees that everyone is voting for him, then when he starts thinking about what name he wanted to be called when he is when he is elected as Pope, and then finds out that he's not actually getting elected, he also falls into this pride, or into this idea that it would be nice to be Pope, or it would be nice to have this power and this seat, right? It's like, it's giving me very much the Lord of the Ring vibes with the ring, right? It's giving, I want this position so badly that it corrupts me and it corrupts my soul, right? And this is something that happens with all the cardinals. Even the cardinals that say that they don't want it, all of them, at the end of the day, they imagine themselves being into that position, or having that power, and how they would use it for. And this is exactly what I think is wrong with Catholicism and with the church specifically, because I think we're giving too much power to the church. Obviously, not as much right now, or at least in the present, because obviously the countries or like the vast majority of countries in Europe tend to be secular. But at the end of the day, there is still a lot of power that we give to the church, not only country-wise, but also socially. As a society, we give a lot of power to religion, because we are religious creatures, right? That is something that is within us. But this is exactly what I think is wrong with the church, and is the fact that we are giving too much power to one person in specific, right? And we never know if this person is actually really suited for the role, or is actually doing what we think they are doing, right? In this sense, for example, I loved the Pope Francis. Like, I genuinely loved him. He was so cute, and also he was like, the things that he did whilst he was being Pope, I very heavily agreed with, and also it was something that I thought was correct at the time, right? But also we have a lot of examples of popes that weren't as good, or didn't do things that I think put religion forwards, right? Or put Catholicism forwards. But still, at the same time, even if I like the Pope, I liked Francis, for example, and I hope Leon is as good as Francis was, or is at the same level, at least theologically they are. There is still something very much wrong with the church as an institution, and it's the fact that it is really like, not only there is just one person at the top, but also everyone that is around the Pope, or everyone that is around this position, is still very much corrupted by this power, and the power that the church has over people. For example, you cannot tell me that cardinals that could have been elected as Pope instead of Leon around like 2 months ago or like a month ago, that believe that homosexuals shouldn't exist, or that people that are divorced should be excommunicated of their communities or like their religious communities, and also that women shouldn't be in positions of power in the church because they are women, they are not men. You could not tell me, or you cannot tell me, that they deserve to be in the position of Pope. They should not be the head of state of the Vatican and the head of state of the religion. It just doesn't make sense, at least for me, because like I understand that you can have your own political ideas, or you can have your own ideology regarding same-sex marriage, for example, or marriage in general, but you cannot tell me that you should have the right to literally take out the rights of other people just because you are the head of state. Like, even in the Bible, when you read the Bible, you know, or you see, like, there is nothing that shows you that women shouldn't be in positions of power. For example, taking into account that Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene was an apostle. Like, you cannot tell me that women shouldn't be in the position of power, taking into account that she was. Like, you cannot tell me that as a Catholic, someone can believe that women do not belong to the church, taking into account the position of Mary, the mother of Jesus, the mother of God, like how important it is into, like how rooted she is into our traditions and how important she is to the church, right? We have hundreds of like Marys around our communities, right? For example, in my community, we have Pilar, who is like one of the main or like one of the first apparitions or Mary apparitions that happened around the world, right? In Jerusalem. And she is so central to like my religious community, right? Or for example, in Latin America, we have Guadalupe, we have Montserrat, we have so many examples of women that were like, that are venerated every single day around the world in like Catholic communities, right? You cannot tell me that there are no women in power that, or like there are no women that should be in power in the church, taking into account how important the position of women or like the position of womanhood is in the church. We also forget how important women are within the community, right? Not only within religion, but also within the community. And this is something that I see every day with my grandma, right? So I see how women are the ones that are bringing religion forwards, right? Because men do not give a fuck about religion, right? There are religious men, and usually, or the vast majority of examples that I see, or the men that I see within my surroundings that are religion, they use it as a way to control women, right? But all the women that are religion, or that are religious, or all the women that preach Christianity are the ones that are pushing the church forwards, right? Like, my grandma, for example, she is the most devoted Catholic that I have ever met. She goes to church every single day, right? And she's the one that makes sure that everything is organized for all the masses. She is the one that pulls forward all the events and all the social environments that they do within the community of her church. She is literally like at the top, right? She is the one that the priest goes to when he has a question regarding like any masses or any events, because she's the one that organizes everything, right? And then she has like everyone around her, which 99% of the people that like are in her community are also elderly women. She is like, they are the ones that are keeping the community alive. They are the ones that are doing all these events, or all this fundraising, or giving meals, giving lunches, preparing all these things in order to make sure that people in their community are safe. They are the ones that are keeping church alive. Women are the ones that are keep doing good things for the church and for their communities. They are the ones that are controlling the church. They are the ones that should be in power. And everything related to same-sex marriage, for example, or divorces, or everything that people seem to have a problem with, like, for example, abortion, these are things that are just genuinely so stupid, right? And do you know why the Bible doesn't agree with the vast majority of these things? Because of biology. Because of biology. That was the only, they used the Bible as a way to explain things that they could not explain because they didn't have the, like, they weren't advanced enough scientifically in order to prove it wrong, right? For example, you can say about the same-sex marriage, for example, actually, in the Bible, in the original Bible, it doesn't say you cannot lay with another man as a man. It says you cannot lay with a child as another man. That is another thing. Like, first of all, there are a lot of translations and there are a lot of texts that are genuinely manipulated in order to put other people's personal beliefs and personal politics. But when we talk about things that are actually in the Bible, like, for example, abortion is not okay, or you shouldn't be laying with your own family, it is like, that is the only way that they could explain, like, the biology of, like, science, or like the biology of what happens if you do these things, because at the end of the day, it was a danger for the community, right? For example, if you say you cannot lay with your brother as a woman, it was like it was the Bible version of science or biology, because right now you can do whatever you want. You can lay with your brother if you want. I think it's disgusting, but at the end of the day, you can still do it, but you know the consequences. You know that there will be inbreeding. You know that if you reproduce and if you have a child, this child will have very grave consequences, right? That's the was the Bible said. Like, that was why the Bible said that you cannot lay with your brother or you cannot lay with your sibling. The same thing as abortion. The way, like, they mentioned that abortion was not okay because it put the woman in danger, because they knew that if, like, something happened, like if someone wanted to take to terminate the pregnancy, they knew that this is a dangerous practice and they wanted to keep the woman alive. That's why they did it. And, like, you guys, many of you that are religious, you have no comprehension, no reading comprehension whatsoever, because you don't focus on why does the Bible say this. You focus on the Bible says this, therefore you cannot do it. And then you try to police people's behavior in order to control them, in order to get your way. And this is the thing that really grinds my gears, right? Because if you look into religion and if you look into Christianity in general, it's not even Catholicism. If you look into Christianity, you know what are the main values of Christianity? They are love, faith, forgiveness, humility, compassion, justice, and hope. These are the 7 values of Christianity. How many of these values do you think all these crazy ass religious people have? Like, the ones that are marching for, like, against abortion or same-sex marriage or homosexuality in general. How many of these values do you think they have? None of them. Zero. Because they are not using religion as a way to bring the community forward or as a way to embrace the community. They use religion as a way of control, as a way of mass control and control of their, like, the society in general, because they know they can get away with it and they know that this is bringing them power. But that's why in the United States, for example, even though the country is literally secular or should be considered secular, at least your constitution says that, you still are very much a Christian country, because you know and you understand, or people in power understand, that that is the way that they can control the masses, because you take everything literal. Because you take the Bible and you literally just read it and say, this is actually what it says, so therefore I shouldn't be doing it. And then you try to please people to say that this is what the Bible says, so therefore you cannot do it. And actually, if we even get more pedantic about religion, we have to also take into account that everything that we see in the New Testament, right? Not in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, is written after Jesus dies. There is no message. There is nothing written in the Bible that is directly translated from God or from Jesus, which is the literal body, like earthly representation of God, right? There are no messages directly from Jesus. So everything that is written in the Bible, everything is written by a human. It's written by a normal person, just like you and me. Do you know what that means? That means that the person that wrote this unconsciously put their own personal politics and personal desires into the Bible, into the messages. That's why Saint Paul is so misogynistic, because he didn't want women in the church. And that's why nowadays women cannot be in the church because of Paul, because he was jealous of of Mary Magdalene. But that's another story for another day. That is why there are so many hypocrisies within the Bible, because the different messengers, the different people that were writing the Bible had their own personal politics. They introduced their own personal politics for their own power, right? We also know that there are rumors that there are certain messages that Mary Magdalene wrote herself, but obviously all the other apostles decided to just either break it or burn it or not include it in the Bible, because they knew that that would give women power, right? Which is what actually Jesus wanted, but that's also another story for another day. So now, going full circle, we realize that, first of all, the Bible is created by humans who are imperfect and they are not at the image of God. And also, Conclave is focusing on all these personal politics and personal desires that corrupt people, because at the end of the day, that's exactly what the church is. And that is exactly why I don't follow the church and I don't follow Catholicism, because the idea of the religion sounds amazing in practice, or sounds amazing in theory, right? Because we have love, we have faith, we have unity, and we have compassion. But then actually, in reality, we find out that the church, which is the administration that controls the religion, is filled by imperfect humans that are corrupted in order to get power. As a quick conclusion, this is what my sister, who is Catholic and practicant, told me the other day. It doesn't really matter what the church decides or says or does. What matters is what you do with your own practice every single day. Because at the end of the day, there are as many practices as there are people in the world. What matters is what you think inside and what you decide to do with this practice. You can use these practices and these beliefs for good, or you can do them, you can use them for bad, for your own for the purpose of your own power and control. That is not how you should use religion. And if that's how you'd use it, you should think again, and you should actually reconsider what you do with your own religion. But as long as you practice on your own and decide to do your own, and you do good for your community, that is all that matters, because that is your religion, and that is the first example of you being an actual good person and an actual Catholic. That's all for today, guys. I am so sorry for the sermon, and I am so sorry for how intense it got, but I hope you got the main idea and the main message of the book, and you also understand why do I love Conclave so much. And if you haven't read the book, or if you haven't watched the film, I 100% wish you would, because this is not a miss. You should 100% read this book. It's just so good. It genuinely got me stuck into the book and into reading, because I could not put it away. That's how good and how intense it was. And if you have read the book, I would love to know your opinion. Please make sure that you put it in the comments. I would love to discuss this book and to discuss religion as well. It's one of my favorite topics to discuss. And also as well, if you want to see more of my content, please feel free to follow me on my social media. I would love to be mutuals and just discuss via DM as well. I would love that. And yeah, I hope you had a great day, or I hope you enjoyed the video and you had a great day, and I will see you next week. Bye.